Hey everyone, we're back with another week of Find Your Film. This is the episode that is covering for the week of Friday, September 17th, 2021. We have three interesting movies for you. Very interesting movies this week. Let me start off first with Eric Holmes' Prisoners of Homestand. Prisoners of Homestand. By the way, you can check out, listeners, you can check out the video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel, Deepest Dream. Eric Holmes, are you excited about the three films we are covering this week? Did any of these movies blow you away? Teaser on that.
Yes. One in particular did,
Oh,
and we'll get into that. It was a pretty wild movie, and I'm not the only one that thinks so.
do I look like a rat man to you, Eric Holmes? Do I look like a rat man?
A Rat Man, like the band Rat. They sing the song that I'm not going to sing because you'll just cut it.
RATT. Remember, that's rat. What is it? Out of the cellar? No, Rat Man. Bruce, do you get the reference? Bruce Perky.
I don't know. My brain is going.
Listeners, we got back into the show. I just cut Eric and Bruce. They went on a 20-minute This Is Rat on Spotify playlist. They just elongated the show by 20 minutes, and we just cut off 20 minutes of their best. Bruce Perky, what's your favorite rat song? Is that a Round and Round? Is that your favorite rat song?
Is there another rat song? I don't know.
Eric Holmes? No?
Because I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. There was a local band, I think JRZ System. And so they would play with Stephen Percy. And I could be wrong, but I think they became like the backing band for Rat.
Oh, okay.
Or at least the backing band for Steve Percy a couple times. But that was cool, I guess. But no, not a huge Rat fan. I do know that song.
I guess maybe one of these days, maybe
it's good drinking music.
It's good.
You get drunk enough, it's like, screw it, Rat.
Bruce, in your younger days, did you ever get drunk to Rat music, RATT music?
Never, ever. I was already into punk by then, so Rat was out.
Don't you miss? Would you, if you could turn back time, would you just say, forget F you? Again, we got back right now. That was all right, folks. We just got back from our share interlude, which has now since been cut. I was gonna throw some more rat jokes, but Bruce, any movies are you passionate about this week as far as what we're covering? Let me just unveil everything. We're covering Prisoners of the Ghostland, starring Nicolas Cage. Copshop, the latest film by director Joe Carnahan. Joe Carnahan, he of the movies The A-Team, Narc, and what else, guys? I'm thinking Narc, The A-Team,
Smoking Aces.
Yes. Oh, and The Gray, very good. So are you? And then finally, this documentary, Boris Karloff, the man behind the monster. Bruce, you excited about all three of these films? Is there something out of the bunch that you're really excited to talk about? How are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling good. I think there's good, there's bad, and there's okay in that trio.
There's good, there's bad, and there's I think I know which one is the good one. Bruce Perky has actually, well, he's not a card counter like what we were covering last week. He's actually playing his hand because I'm believing the good one is sitting right next to him. For our podcast listeners, Bruce, what is next to your microphone this week? Can you tell our podcast listeners?
It's not a doll. It's an action figure.
It's an action figure.
It's I don't know what this was, maybe the 70th anniversary, 50th anniversary, and they came out with a full-size little action figure of Boris Karloff playing Frankenstein.
It's alive. It just fell down, folks. Is he okay? Is he all right?
Well, he's reanimated, so how could he actually ever go down again? So yeah, he's good.
Gravity bad.
Gravity.
He's looking for a little girl to throw into the lake. He's gonna do this.
Okay.
She floats. They all float down here.
Very funny. Also covered. By the way, Eric Holmes, for this episode, do you have a recommendation or no? Not really right off the top of your head. Anything off your head? Because I think this is going to be the Bruce Perky show because he has like three movies on the docket.
I do have a recommendation. It's not a movie, but I do want to talk about it because it's that good.
Okay.
And it will be a movie soon. So maybe that does kind of tie into the show.
Okay. That sounds good. And Bruce, you every single week, folks, on our Google Doc, last several weeks, Bruce Perky, we've been kicking the can on the Netflix film Sweet Girl. I don't know. Is that a punishment, Bruce, if we actually make Eric eventually see Sweet Girl one of these days?
Yeah. We'll just keep mentioning it until he actually watches it. Then we'll discuss it. If we can remember it, we'll talk about it then. So.
And what's it playing on again? Because I keep meaning to do it, but I keep forgetting what it's playing on. And for some reason, the idea of checking Google never crosses my mind. We're living in the future, and somehow I'm just not getting it.
Again, Sweet Girl is playing on Netflix, Eric Holmes. All you need to do is download just on your iPad or on your TV, just open up Netflix. Sweet Girl will be on the upper left-hand side, right next to Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and then Sweet Girl, right smack dab in the middle. Am I correct, Bruce, on this?
Yes.
So it'll be the best movie of the three. It'd be the best movie.
It might be kind of like that famous album review by of Spinal Tap, Shit Sandwich. Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. And then Bruce might actually have some thoughts on these movies called Malignant. It's a new movie that I believe over the weekend made $15 million. And this is a movie that I'm really excited to see just because it seems very wackadoodle. Eric Holmes, I'm surprised you haven't seen Malignant. Maybe you were busy over the weekend. Maybe you're watching football like I was, or what were you doing? This is right up your alley. I mean, come on. Were you writing your script?
A little busy, little sick, not COVID, just regular sick. And just didn't get it in. But I will be watching Malignant if for no other reason than Andrew Martin on the Cinematics Facebook page, which you should check out, all fair listeners. But Andrew Martin, I believe he suggested Malignant. I know he said Malignant, so
No, actually,
he said something like Malignant. Watch it.
Andrew Martin says it. I gotta watch it at least at some point. So
Andrew Martin
will definitely be seen by me, as will Sweet Girl.
Oh, as will Sweet Girl. Yes, our good buddy Andrew Martin. He of the Andrew Watches Movies podcast fame. Very good. He has the very enviable, and no, actually not enviable, just very tough job of actually being a one-person podcast. But what's interesting is he puts a very personal spin on his love and appreciation for cinema. And obviously, you know what? It would have been really cool to actually have Andrew talk to us about Universal Monsters, because we're going to get to Boris Karloff in this episode as well. And then also, finally, there's a lot of false moves I've made in my life, and we're going to get to it. But for what's in the box, Bruce Perky, was this one false move? Was that a rewatch, or what was it for you?
Yes, rewatch. I saw it in the theater when it came out and not since. So a rewatch.
Okay, with this movie, I believe it stars Billy Bob Thornton, Cinda Williams, and I haven't seen it for over 27 years, unfortunately. And it's directed, again, I think I said it, was directed by Carl Franklin. Have you ever seen this movie, One False Move, Eric Holmes?
I don't think I have.
It's one of these movies. Yeah, it's one of these movies, and it also stars, I believe, Michael Beach. Very interesting movie. I think it's time I definitely check it for a rewatch, and might be something that you might want to see for the first time, Eric Holmes. It's really interesting.
When you first mentioned it, I thought I saw it, but I think I was thinking of No Way Out with Kevin Costner. Doesn't sound like that's the one. So
what a great movie, directed by Roger Donaldson, starring Sean Young, Gene Hackman. Do you love that movie as well, Bruce Perky? Is it better than Sweet Girl? What do you think? What's
It's better than Sweet Girl. Oh yeah, it's better than Sweet Girl.
It's better than Sweet Girl. But
did I say I was going to watch Sweet Girl? Maybe I won't watch Sweet Girl.
Maybe you won't watch Sweet Girl. But you know what? I'm going to just actually, for this episode, I'm going to stay on the lane, and I'm going to start off with the first movie that Bruce Perky he does our weekly show notes and organizes everything for me and Eric, because we are so disorganized beyond belief. Thank you, Bruce Perky, for doing this. I've never said this. I've never said thank you before, and I'll never say thank you again. So this is the only chance you get, by the way. By the way, thank you. Okay. So cherish the thank you, Bruce, on this. Very good. Very good. By the way, our podcast is growing in listeners, but we are now millions of dollars in debt because Bruce and Eric are singing the favorite tunes from yesteryear. But let's not. Yes, Eric Holmes, you had some thoughts? Did you have some?
Say you're listening to Find Your Karaoke with Greg, Bruce, and Eric.
Yes, and this episode, Bruce is leading that episode. Now, Prisoners of the Ghostland. I would have to say that all three of us, I'm going to speak for all three of us, we are all huge fans of Nicolas Cage, and we're excited to see just any Nicolas Cage film that's coming out. Bruce, would you say that Nicolas Cage in the last several years, he's been on a really good run? I'm thinking Color Out of Space, Pig, Mandy, Eric, throwing it to you guys too. Do you think it's just like any other year for Nicolas Cage, or do you think this is just a really great run for him?
He's been doing a lot. I mean, he's been doing a lot of movies for a while. So, you know, just mathematically, he's going to accidentally get some good ones in once in a while. But I think anytime Nicolas Cage is in a movie, he's at least good in it. And he's, you know, especially when he goes full Cage, it's always interesting to watch, even if the movie's not that great. But yeah, he's had a couple real bangers too. So, you know, with Mandy, Color Out of Space. I didn't love Pig as much as you did, but that would definitely be up there.
I think Pig's my favorite out of the whole bunch. But do you think this is a great run for Bruce? Would you for Nicolas Cage, Bruce? What do you think?
It depends. I'd have to see how many movies he's released each year to know, because if he's released 20 movies and he's got 2 good ones, maybe not such a good run. But I mean, maybe he's only released 5 this year. So there, you know, then that would be a good run.
I think by aggregate, I'm going to say this right now, Nicolas Cage probably has to be the best actor out there, just by the quantity of movies he's done and that are very good to excellent. One of these days, we actually have to run off a list. Maybe there might be. Wouldn't it be funny if there's about 25 to 30 really good Nicolas Cage movies out there?
Oh, and I bet there are. I bet you could easily get 20 really good Nicolas Cage movies.
That would compare up to probably De Niro or Pacino or some of the best, or even Gary Cooper, the Burt Lancaster. He's like right up there. And the fact that he makes 500 movies a year, that, like Eric says, by sheer math, there's going to be a couple of really, really good ones, right? Okay, now, there's a reason there's going to be a reason I'm reading the synopsis for Prisoners of the Ghostland. I'm not going to go off script on here, okay? And there's a reason why, and I'll get to it in a second. Quote, in the treacherous frontier city of Samurai Town, a ruthless bank robber played by Nicolas Cage is sprung from jail by a wealthy warlord known as the Governor. His adopted granddaughter, Bernice, played by Sofia Boutella, has gone missing. It is up to the bank robber played by Cage to find Bernice and bring her back to Samurai Town. But you know what? In the middle of his journey, he runs into just a really weird desert-ridden area that looks like it came out of one of those Mad Max installments. It's called Prisoners of the Ghostland. It's a ghostland filled with people who you're kind of wondering, why are all these people dressed in rags? Why are they worshiping a clock? And why do they not make sense? And why do they do musical numbers? The reason why I'm not going off book regarding the plot of this is I didn't understand one darn thing of Prisoners of the Ghostland, which is in theaters, on demand, and digital. It's directed by, I'm mispronouncing the name, Sion, Sion Sono. It's a very interesting movie. We're going to start off with you, Eric Holmes. Your thoughts on Prisoners of the Ghostland.
I wrote this down because I'm very clever. And I thought it summed the movie up nicely. Imagine if Jodorowsky did a remake of Road Warrior set in the world of Coco, and then Takashi Miike remade that movie into a samurai western. You kind of get a good idea of what Prisoners of Ghostland is.
That's great.
And the weird thing is, like, it's an odd movie. Obviously, on the poster it says it has the they have the quotes of certain critics. And when the quote said, "This was the wildest movie ever made," Nick Cage. And I mean, if that doesn't sell the movie to you, I don't know what does. And the cool thing about this movie is that it's definitely a comedy, which that I wasn't expecting. I figured it would be like weird and funny, like, but not self-aware. And it is I think a lot of the comedy is self-aware, not just breaking the fourth wall, but like the movie knows it's silly and just kind of leans into it. And I appreciate that. It's not doing the Sharknado thing where it's like, this movie sucks. Get it? It does its weird things, but it kind of leans into it and it has fun with it. And yeah, I like this movie a lot. I appreciate that. Nick Cage seems a little different in this because he started off as kind of stoic Nick Cage, and then he kind of has a different character than he does in most of them. And he's a lot funnier in this than he is in, because usually when Nick Cage is funny, when he's going full Cage, you're usually laughing at him. This one, I feel that Nick Cage is kind of not in on the joke, but his character has kind of I don't know how you would put it, like I don't give a shit. Like he's got one-liners, which he doesn't usually do. His one-liners are just usually him just going fucking nuts. And yeah, this is a strange Mad Max kind of Jodorowsky
Takashi Miike
Takashi Miike acid trip, and I was eating it all up.
That is a very good description, Eric Holmes. You know what? I'm just going to say this right now. I'm going to actually flag this down because I want to get your comment so I can put it on the social media verse because I want to I want to get reactions. I'm Greg Clickbait Srzavasti. Prisoners of the Ghostland or Pig? Which do you prefer, Eric Holmes?
Oh, this one. Like I said, I like Pig, but I didn't like it as much as you guys did. And they're also different movies. Like Pig's weird, but this one's like flat out bonkers. Like this one's like Mandy weird, but I think this one has more comedy than Mandy does because Mandy's really, really serious and, you know, it's bloody and gory, but it has a really serious tone and it's crazy. And this is also that, but it's a lot more fun and a lot more funny. Kind of like the difference between Gremlins and Gremlins 2. They're both similar, but like Gremlins is more horror. Gremlins 2 is more comedy. If you were to compare like Mandy's the more horror one. Prisoners of Ghostland is more the comedy version of that with samurais and yeah.
So we're talking about some really great Nicolas Cage movies like Color Out of Space, Mandy. Would you put Prisoners of the Ghostland in that same Nicolas Cage bouillabaisse of really good movies? Does it belong in that category? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I would put this above Color Out of Space. I put it, I think I like Mandy a little bit more, but I also saw that a lot more times. So I mean, Mandy's, how do you beat Mandy?
No, it's hard to beat Mandy.
That's a tough bar to clear and not a very fair one to assume any movie would ever meet. But this one gets pretty close for me.
Very good, Eric. To be fair, I also forgot to mention it also stars Bill Moseley, Yakuza Nakaya, Tak Sakaguchi, and director Nick Cassavetes. Nick Cassavetes, the director of The Notebook, plays this bank robber known as Psycho, who's actually.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah, Nick Cassavetes,
all right,
big guy. Yeah, a very memorable role from Nick Cassavetes. He should be acting more actually.
What's the woman's name? The Sofia Boutella.
Very good. She's
been in a bunch of stuff. I recognize her from The Mummy, but she's actually been in some good stuff. And I don't have her IMDb up.
No, she was in the Kingsman movie, the first one, and she's a really good actress. And she was in Atomic Blonde as well. So she's very good in these physically demanding roles. Bruce Perky, Eric Holmes, high marks for Prisoners of the Ghostland. Where does this land for you?
Low marks. I love
this.
Not work for me.
This
did
is
not
so
work
cool
for me on any way. I thought the production design was horrible. The script was horrible. The tone was ridiculously terrible. Everything was awkward. The action was awkward. They totally misused Cage. Like he was relatively unused in this movie. And when he did do stuff, it was just kind of like, I didn't know what he was doing. Sofia Boutella is about the only person I kind of liked in this movie as far as acting goes. Yeah, this was a mess. This is like, I don't know. We're all old enough, but no one else, probably a lot of people out there aren't. After Mad Max, there was all these kind of offshoot Mad Max movies where they tried to kind of create that trash, a post-apocalyptic look. This seemed like those, but maybe as filtered through like an art installation. It was terrible. This movie was it was tedious. Oh my God. I could not wait for this movie to end. It was painful. I hated this movie.
You hated for 100 minutes. How many times, Bruce, did you roll your eyes?
I didn't roll my eyes. It wasn't even fun enough to roll my eyes. That's the problem. There's another terrible movie, arguably terrible movie I'm going to talk about this week that was so much fun. This movie was so much not fun. I thought it was, oh God, it was just terrible. It was so terrible. I just did not like anything about it hardly, except Sofia Boutella. I liked her. She was like a small, tiny, shining moment. And Nicolas Cage's butt cheeks. Those were good.
That was it. Greg.
Yes.
I think Bruce is in trouble. He needs help. He thinks he's reviewing Willy's Wonderland. Bruce, we're talking about Prisoners of Ghostland, not Willy's Wonderland.
I think this was worse than Willy's Wonderland.
No,
I dislike this more than Willy's Wonderland. Because first of all, it was longer than Willy's Wonderland.
Bruce has lost it. We need to get him help.
Bruce,
I love you. We're gonna get you help.
I love this. Bruce, I don't know if there was a time during your life when you would actually drink, but let's just say you actually did you ever like scotch or a whiskey? Let's say someone gave you a top shelf scotch. You can have it neat or on the rocks. And then maybe what's going to pair it with maybe your meat of choice, your steak of choice. So you're going to have a nice dinner. The only problem is You're gonna have this really expensive dinner, and then maybe like whatever aperitif or whatever kind of appetizer you want. Think about that, or maybe a dessert too. Me being Asian, I love tiramisu. You can pick your dessert. Do whatever you want. Best food on the table. Elegant dining just for you. The only caveat, see, we mentioned caveat every episode, is you have to you have to during your meal watch Prisoners of the Ghostland or The Painted Bird. Which one do you choose as the lesser of two evils?
The Painted Bird.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, now I know he's lying.
The Painted Bird was more beautiful to look at. This movie looks terrible.
That's so amazing. I love you, Bruce. I love that. Okay, so my quick take on Prisoners of the Ghostland. I'm going to say this right now. This movie does not make a... Yes, Eric.
I think Bruce is... I can't even say it. That's a spoiler.
It's a spoiler. Look,
something's about to explode on Bruce.
I'm going to be on. Okay. Look. Okay. No, it's not a spoiler.
Is that suit coming in the mail?
Listeners, this is not a spoiler. Here's the thing: he has to actually get that woman played by Sofia Boutella in that Ghostland area. If he, you're thinking, he gets his job from the governor. He can actually run away in a car and just leave because he's currently a prisoner. He can just escape. No, he can't escape. He has a suit. Or a bicycle. Right. And then
he's the coolest man I've ever seen.
He has a suit which has little buttons or something, or bombs. There one's attached to each testicle. There's to his arms and to his throat area. So if he actually manhandles that young woman played by Sofia Boutella in a very harsh way, then one of them will explode. So he has to actually get her from her environment in a peaceful manner. As I'm trying to explain the story, Bruce really probably wants to brain me because we're spending so much more time on Prisoners of the Ghostland, which, by the way, Bruce, here's a spoiler. Within all of this mess, I actually like the movie. I found this movie to be really cool. I
kept wanting to get those guys. Let go of that thing. Let the clock go. Please let it go. I'm unlike both of you, you guys are more courageous than me. I'm not going to theaters. This is actually a movie that I would have wanted to go see. I know, Bruce, you're gonna be disgusted. I would have wanted to go see this in the big screen. Would have loved to see that big clock that they created. And does it look like it was created in an art installation? You know what? I don't know how much money they had for this, but I thought the production design, it was really cool in a graphic novel kind of way. And Eric, you were so on point regarding the Takashi Miike situation comparison with Jodorowsky. I just thought all of this stuff really shouldn't have blended. The samurai Western weird apocalyptic thing shouldn't have worked, but it worked for me. But to Bruce's point, Bruce is by the way, Bruce actually, for your podcast listeners, he's shaking his head and saying, no, it doesn't work. To Bruce's defense, though, the narrative itself did not completely resonate with me, but it is such a visual feast, and it is just so audacious in its storytelling, though incoherent it may be. It's just a crazy movie that I think is really worth watching. A, if you're a Nicolas Cage fan, and B, if you just want to you might hate it, but I think it's worth just checking out one time in select theaters on demand and digital September 17th. Final thoughts on Prisoners of the Ghostland. Bruce, absolutely no recommend. Yeah, don't do it.
Don't. Eric Holmes, final thoughts.
I would very much recommend this, and some people may hate me when they watch it, but I don't care because I love this movie so much. And does this movie count as a musical?
Of course it
does. Because there's part, like whenever Bill Moseley's talking, and then like whenever they do like the exposition, but they do the exposition with like dance and kind of like chants, but it has parts that feel like it wants to be a musical, but it's not quite there. But,
yeah, Bruce, didn't you like the singing and the dancing and the storytelling and the reading of the books? Didn't that captivate you?
They just took everything and threw it at the screen, and I was like, I'm eating it all up.
Bruce has gone silent, folks. Bruce has gone silent. He wants to move on. He does not want to be a prisoner of this Ghostland we call a movie. So moving forward, listeners, tell us what you think once you go see it. I don't know. Bruce is saying, do not see this movie. Me and Eric are saying, give it a shot. Again, if you have problems with this movie, do not contact Bruce. It's not his fault. It's me and Eric's fault. Yes,
I would be really curious to see what people think of this one, because yes. I don't think Bruce is wrong in that, this is it is kind of a mess, but I'm just kind of here for it. And obviously Bruce isn't beep, beep, beep. But
I will disagree with you, Eric. It is not kind of a mess. It's a total mess, but I think it's consciously a mess. It's consciously a mess.
It's like a Jackson Pollock painting. Like, I don't get it, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's like a Jackson Pollock painting, but it was actually painted by a monkey.
Yeah, exactly.
So it actually has no intention to the mess.
So basically what it boils down to is I agree with Bruce. I just like it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, ultimately that's what it always gets down to is taste. But, we all agree it's a mess.
But
it's just whether it's a mess worth watching.
This is one, like, of all the movies we're going to talk about this week, this is the one I'm really curious what people are going to think of it. Like, if they're going to eat it up, or like, I'm sure there's people going to hate this one, obviously, but I'm kind of curious of what the, is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be 69-41? I don't know. I don't know what the ratio is going to be.
Yeah.
Does that add up?
Bruce, as far as movie lines go, where do you think? Where do you put them? Attica, or That'll Be the Day, or I Am Radioactive. Which is your favorite out of all? Which is no comment, Bruce.
I'm trying to remember the tune to Radioactive. I could sing that to you.
Okay. All right, moving forward, we have. Oh, you know what, Eric, you and I are in for a drubbing, because if people listen to this and they watch this and they get really mad, they're going to come after us. I just want you to know that regarding Christmas.
I would say,
are you ready?
As long as this movie gets a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes, I'll be happy.
Okay, we'll have to see. Bruce will have his reckoning very, very soon. Coming to theaters also on September 17th is Copshop. It's the latest film from Joe Carnahan. I forgot what his last movie was. It was that Frank Grillo piece on Boss Level on Hulu. So did you both like it, Bruce? Have you seen Boss Level? Eric, have you seen Boss Level as well?
Yeah. I believe I talked about it.
Okay,
or at least I watched it and didn't talk about it, which has happened also.
You talked about it.
Okay.
As Escapist Fair, was that a movie that both of you guys liked?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is good. This is a good thing.
I didn't end up watching it yet, but it's been one of those ones on my queue forever that I just never got around to. But it looks interesting. It looks fun.
Okay, one of my favorite cop movies, bar none, is Narc, starring Jason Patric and Ray Liotta, directed by Joe Carnahan, obviously early in his career. And and I also thought Smoking Aces is very underrated, although it has its detractors, a lot of detractors. I thought it's an interesting movie. Bruce Perky brought up The Gray. That's another movie. I think as time goes by, that's probably his most revered film, along with Narc, as far as, just the story-wise. Copshop, okay, how do I say this? It centers on this guy named Teddy Moretto, played by Frank Grillo. He is on the run because he knows he has a contract out on him. And the person who's trying to fulfill that contract is a hitman named Bob Vidic, played by Gerard Butler.
You're a psychopath. I'm a professional. I'm invisible. That's where I'm gonna be. I got heat all over me. I'm not telling you where I am. When are you gonna arrest me? One of you people, please arrest me.
You're under arrest. So why were you looking to get locked up, Theodore?
Everyone's trying to kill me. He nearly killed us. What'd you do? I did what I had to do. To get to you, Teddy.
The legendary Bob Vidic.
You're a psychopath. I'm a professional. You pissed off the wrong people. I'm gonna kill you.
Drop that gun. No one kills anyone in here.
You say you fell?
Yeah. Well, to clarify, I shot him in the head and then he took that little tumble. Hola!
How bad is it?
Are you an idiot, Teddy?
Anthony Lamb.
I'm going by the more friendly and less formal Tony these days.
Clear off my contract.
No can do. This contract is free fire, as there are competing parties for one Theodore Moretto. Bob, are we gonna duel to the death?
Get me out of here. Always and only about Teddy. Here they come.
Let's make a deal, man. I got a lot of money.
There's no deal to be made. Come on, Teddy. You know how this goes.
I need to know everything.
All you had to do was let me blow his head off when I had the chance. Somebody help this man! He's gonna die!
I'm coming in there whether you like it or not.
Now you see the difference? That is a psychopath.
The thing is that the way Teddy decides to escape the hitman is to lock himself up in a jail out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. And so what he does is he just assaults a police officer. That police officer is Valerie Young, played by Alexis Louder. And we're going to hear more about Valerie in a second. So he punches Valerie. She tases him. She puts him in jail. And he thinks Frank Grillo, his character, Teddy thinks everything's going to be fine. The hitman's not going to get to him, but ultimately the hitman finds a way to actually get himself in jail, thrown in jail with Teddy, but in a separate cell. That is the premise of Copshop. The only problem is the hitman is not the only problem of Teddy's. There are other hit people coming in to collect on that contract, and there lies the action sequences regarding Copshop. There may be police officers who might be compromised within the department. There is a lot of violence, a lot of explosions, a lot of things going on with Copshop. Bruce Perky, your thoughts on this movie? Did this movie work for you? We're talking about Freddy's Dead a little bit. There's a Curtis Mayfield sort of shout out that runs throughout the movie. How did this movie work for you?
Well, first of all, after the last movie and this movie, we definitely need to make sure the sponsorship from John Carpenter is acknowledged for these movies. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Because this owes a hell of a lot to Precinct 13, Assault on Precinct 13. But that being said, this is a kind of a no-brainer. If you like action movies, this is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I'm kind of a sucker for a movie that's like a limited location, people stuff. I mean, like the classic Night of the Living Dead, they're all stuck in a house with a threat. And here they're kind of stuck in a jail cell, and it's like kind of a cat and mouse, also an assault. And we won't say who he is, but the character played by Toby Huss just about steals this movie.
Yes,
I would say, as well as say Alexis Louder is quite amazing as the lead of this movie. I think she outshines really the name performers. I think. Well, for me, she's not as much of a name as the other performers. This is just
she's a star of the movie. She's a star of the movie.
Yeah, this is kind of like a Tarantino light, meets kind of gritty action crime thriller in a limited, setting. And it's nothing too heavy. It's not going to blow your mind, but it's a lot of fun. I think if you kind of are already into that kind of a movie. Also, I got to say, Gerard Butler is becoming very quickly to me so reliable. Like almost everything he's in, even if it's kind of crappy, it's somehow just watchable. I don't know what it is, but he has a way of doing that. Even with his terrible movies, like what was that? Oh God, I can't even think of the name of it now. He's had a few of them. Greenland that we saw recently.
Yeah. Greenland was good.
That was
that's what I mean. But I mean,
Greenland shouldn't have worked at all, but it kind of totally did.
Yeah.
He has something about him. He's like this really solid charisma action lead, and he's able to kind of pull these movies off. I don't know what it is. I think this is a lot of fun. I think this is a good movie.
You were thinking Geostorm, either Geostorm.
Yes, I was thinking Geostorm. Yeah. Geostorm. That thing's ridiculous, but it's fun. Yeah, I mean, the middle of this movie where the Toby Huss or Toby, I don't know if they're saying his name right.
You're right, Toby Huss.
When his character comes in, and there's about a 15 to 20 minute sequence with him when he first arrives, and it is worth the price of admission, I'd say.
Yeah, and another thing about Copshop, which is interesting, is a lot of there is action in this movie, but I don't know how long is this movie. It is 107 minutes. There is a good 50% of this movie where it's a little bit of a exposition laden interrogation on who to trust or what to do when one is stuck in this station. So that I found that to be interesting as well. Eric, you really like this, Bruce? Are you on the same level, Eric, regarding Copshop?
Yeah, I just like Joe Carnahan's movies in general. Like he's got kind of two different speeds. He's got like the kind of, I guess, the more realistic air quotes, more realistic ones like The Gray or Narc. But then he's got like the fun ones like Boss Level or Smoking Aces. And this one's more on the fun level of like, this is, if you like Smoking Aces, this is kind of like Smoking Aces too. And like Bruce said, it's not a remake of Assault on Precinct 13, but it's totally a remake of Assault on Precinct 13. Yeah, Gerard Butler, he's quickly becoming one of my favorite kind of like Bruce. Pretty much everything Bruce said, I agree with, and I like it too. But yeah, anytime I see Joe Carnahan's name on a movie, I'm there for it. I'm going to watch it. And I don't think I didn't like this one as much as I did Boss Level, because I think Boss Level kind of hit more emotional beats, and this one didn't quite get there. But I don't think, this one was trying to be a little more fun, over the top, kind of silly at times. And not that that's a bad thing, but this is kind of one of those just sit back and enjoy it type movies. It's violent, it's funny, it's thrilling. It's a good action movie, and check it out. And what's her name? The lead character,
Alexis Louder.
Yeah, she's great. I love her in this, and I want to see her in more. In fact, I should check her IMDb, see what else she's been in, because I really, really, really like her a lot in this.
Yeah, I think the big reveal regarding Copshop is Frank Grillo and Gerard Butler. When they're in a movie, you're thinking, oh, Copshop, these two A-list actors. It's just going to be them going at each other or going at the bad guys for about 107 minutes. But ultimately, Copshop becomes like Bruce was saying, pretty much a star vehicle for Alexis Louder.
I also think that Joe Carnahan when you got Joe Carnahan directing Frank Grillo, I think that's just a special sauce right there. Like Frank Grillo's good, but when you get him working with Joe Carnahan, it's like he goes from good to, oh, we're going to see something cool. And this is no exception.
Yes, this is also to your point, Frank Grillo's character, Teddy Moretto, he's an interesting guy because he's a con artist. So you're wondering, is Teddy actually not that bad of a guy in Copshop? I think that's the one big mystery. Is he going to do the right thing, or ultimately will he do the wrong thing? So like Eric said, there is a magic sauce between the Grillo and Carnahan collaboration, and that sauce continues to simmer and taste really well with Copshop. But I think ultimately Alexis Louder, to Bruce's point, really is the star of Copshop. Gerard Butler is also very, very good in this movie. Yes, it does not have the same emotional beats of even, say, A Smokin' Aces, which has a very memorable ending with Ryan Reynolds. But again, like Eric was saying, Copshop is not made to be like The Gray or Smoking Aces in like, as far as the ending of Smoking Aces. This is just a fun movie. This is just one of those things, like, they play that Curtis Mayfield song, they actually try to sing through it. It's just a fun, though violent laden fun action film, and I think there's nothing more to really analyze about Copshop. It's just a fun movie. Yes, Eric.
I also really like the ending of this one, and without getting into the ending, although I could tell you exactly what the ending is and it wouldn't make any sense, the ending felt like one of those things. Like I could see Joe Carnahan writing that ending, and like it like he's kind of feeling that scene, and it's probably not going to work for everyone, but I was kind of steeped into it a little bit, I guess. So if there's any emotion there, it would be at that point, because it's a very strange ending to have for a movie like this, but it kind of worked for me as well.
Very good point, Eric. Interesting ending. Bruce, did you like the ending of Copshop?
I did. I also wanted to call out the beginning, and this is a great way to start like an action movie or something like this, where you literally just have a bullet-riddled car barreling across the desert, and it's full of smoke, and you're just like, okay, right out of the gate, you're like, what's going on? This is almost, once again, I mentioned like Tarantino or something. This is like the guy, a guy that's shot riding his horse barely into the town in the Western. It's that classic, we're right in it. This is how we're going to go. And like you said, the ending, we're not going to say what the ending is, but it gives similar, I guess, beats in your brain. It does something similar to in a reverse way, I think. So
the ending is a good ending. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but I wouldn't mind if the story of Copshop continued with another movie. That will never happen, by the way, but I really would like to see some of the surviving characters and their journey, because they were very interesting in this movie. That's what I think. Again, that is Copshop, coming to theaters on Friday, September 17th. No, it's not going to be streaming. It is specifically in theaters. Bruce, worth watching in theaters of just a lazy day? What do you think?
I think so. I think we were talking the other week, we were talking about palate cleansers when you're watching these really heavy movies. This is perfect for that. This is the kind of movie you're feeling down or you just been something really heavy. You just want something that you don't have to really think too hard on and just enjoy. And you can go in and spend your $6 or $10 or whatever you have to spend and watch this. Yeah.
It's a little bit disappointing that it's only playing in theater. I mean, it's cool that it's playing in theaters, but like, I don't know how it is around the rest of the world, but the couple times I've been to the theater since COVID, like people say don't go to the theaters because you'll get sick, and every time I've been in there's been 3 other people in there, so it's basically like being at home. This is a movie that you would want to see in theaters like opening day when it's packed. Granted, that's not something that can happen now. Even if a bunch of people did go, you got, space, they're spacing out seats and all that. It's sad that it's going to theaters now as opposed to, 2 years ago, because I think this would be a great movie to watch in theaters with like a packed house and just everyone in it. Since theaters are the way they are now, I would almost recommend people watching this at home, but inviting a bunch of people to watch it. Because this is a movie that's not so much needs to be seen in theaters, but this is a movie that I think works best with a group of people ready for something like this. And I think if you're going to go to a theater and you're one of 3 people in the theater, I mean, it's going to look awesome. It's going to sound awesome, but I don't think you're going to have as much enjoyment as if you got a bunch of friends together, drinking, get popcorn and just enjoy the piss out of this thing.
Memo to Joe Carnahan, whatever you do, your next movie should star Toby Huss in the lead. Just make a movie just on Toby Huss, or maybe his character in this movie. He is so talented. Speaking of talent, we are going to our final review this week as far as our featured movies is the documentary Boris Karloff, The Man Behind the Monster. It is available in theaters, again, only in theaters on Friday, September 17th. It is delivered to us by Shout Studios and Abro. I don't know how to always pronounce this. Abramorama. But yeah, this documentary, basically, it's exactly what the title says. It's the man behind the monster. When you think of Boris Karloff, what do you think? You think of Frankenstein, possibly The Mummy. You're thinking of maybe
The Word You Lack.
The word you lack. By the way, awesome that The Word You Lack is actually the Word You Lack from Black Sabbath, right? Am I correct? Black Sabbath is actually the documentary opens up with that Mario Bava film Black Sabbath, where Boris Karloff plays The Word You Lack. Interesting documentary. I think really highly worth watching, especially if you want to learn more about the life of Boris Karloff. Interviews include Guillermo del Toro, John Landis, Roger Corman, Peter Bogdanovich, the late Christopher Plummer, Lee Grant, and a whole bunch of other folks, the late Orson Bean as well. Eric Holmes, your thoughts on Boris Karloff, the man behind the monster?
Yeah, I'm surprised this one's playing in theaters at all. This seems like a YouTube documentary. It's good. You learn a lot about him, but I don't know. It feels weird that I liked it, but this isn't something like anything mind-blowing for me. It's just kind of if you like Boris Karloff and you want to learn a lot about classic film and his relationship with fucking Dracula. I can't remember his guy.
Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi, thank you. The Nick Cage of then. If you want to learn about the relationships and stuff, that this is really good and value added in that way. But this just really feels like a YouTube documentary to me. And the idea that it's playing in theaters just seems odd to me. I mean, I'm for it, and hopefully people go see it, but I'm not. I don't get that.
Bruce, what do you think? Did you get that? Do you think does this feel like a YouTube doc for you?
Yeah, I'm right with Eric on that. The documentary itself is very, very standard, bare bones. It's just footage and interviews, and that's pretty much it. Now, once again, just like Eric says, if you're interested, which I am interested in Boris Karloff and old Universal movies and like just actually his career, it's totally interesting. And I definitely learned a few things that I hadn't heard before, especially some of his really, really early stuff was kind of interesting, and his later stuff. The middle, I kind of knew a little more about. So for people who like him as an actor or want to know more about him or want to know more about the classic Universal horror and all that stuff, dive right in. You're going to enjoy it, but it's not going to blow you away as far as documentaries go. It's nothing too fantastic there. Oh, and you didn't mention, of course, Joe Dante. And
Oh yeah. So
And
I take back
Dick Miller.
everything I said. Watch this in theaters because Joe Dante's.
Because Joe Dante has a lot of good stuff to say, and he's so knowledgeable about older movies, especially. He brings a lot of stuff to the table.
This is a movie for cinephiles, especially people who want to learn more about movie history, specifically about the life of Boris Karloff. I thought this was this is not The Thin Blue Line. This is not Gimme Shelter. This is not Michael Apted's Up series. This is not a revolutionary documentary, but like Eric, you were saying, it's for people who really want to learn more about Boris Karloff's life. And really, it's a talking head documentary. A lot of it's, I'm wondering if a lot of it's archive footage or some of it's new footage with his daughter as well. I don't know. I think I really enjoyed this movie because I really didn't know much about his life or what he's about. I just knew the Frankenstein stuff, but there's some really interesting stuff about Frankenstein, The Mummy, a lot of the movies, because unlike you, Bruce, I didn't know a lot of his body of work. So it actually educated me on some of the movies to see, as far as his dramatic work. I had no idea about Arsenic and Old Lace, his work in the theater, all that stuff. And there's also this TV series he did where he was sort of a Rod Serling type called Thriller, which I had no idea about. And you were familiar with that, Bruce. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. I think it lasted 2 to 3 seasons. I looked up Thriller on IMDb, 8.2 out of 10. That is a high rating for an anthology series. I can't wait to watch it. Did you ever get the chance to even check out Thriller, Bruce? Have you ever seen this?
Yeah. I used to look high and low when I was a little kid for monster movies, and I used to wait whenever Twilight Zone or Outer Limits came on, and I used to every so often catch Thriller. So, and even at that age, I knew that guy was a spooky guy. He was in Frankenstein. That's kind of where I was at with him.
So it was a good series. Thriller was a good series for you. It was solid.
I haven't seen this since like eight years old, but I remember it being cool when I was 8. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how it compares to, well, of course, the Twilight Zone, the Outer Limits, Night Gallery, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, all that stuff. Be interesting to one day just dive into all those wonderful anthology series. We don't get those too much anymore other than Black Mirror. Eric Holmes. Yes, sir.
I would say one missed opportunity in this documentary was there was no Mark Dawidziak. And anytime you talk about like older classic film or vampire stuff or Twilight Zone or anything like that, and you don't have Mark Dawidziak in your documentary, you failed. Well, you didn't fail, but you missed an opportunity for sure.
Well, look, because they talked about shock theater, which Mark Dawidziak talked about a lot too. I don't know if you caught that in there. They're talking about shock theater, which was basically what created this whole 50s and 60s resurgence of young kids being old movie fans, because they got reintroduced to that stuff. So
like Joe Dante and John Landis.
So this is just a call out to anyone doing a documentary about classic Hollywood or old monster movies or anything like that. You want to get Joe Dante. You want to get Mark Dawidziak, and like if you get no one else, at least you got those two, and that's pretty much all you need. It did have Dick Miller in it a lot, so that was good to see that. But the only thing that's throwing me off is I don't understand why it's playing exclusively in theaters. Like take this podcast for instance. This podcast is fantastic. The one you're listening to now is the best podcast you're going to hear all week until the next week, which will be even better. I understand that. And you understand that because you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, Eric, you're right. This podcast is amazing. And I agree with you. You do not need to watch this podcast in the theater exclusively. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's weird. It should be probably on digital or streaming sooner than later. Also, what's interesting about this documentary, I mentioned his daughter, Sarah Karloff. It's good to know she didn't turn out to be one of the Hollywood children who were haunted by a non-loving parent. She seems to really embrace the legacy of her father, and it really shows through this documentary. Definitely worth watching. Very informative film if you are not an expert on the life of Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff, The Man Behind the Monster, again, opens in theaters Friday, September 17th. And incredulous Eric Holmes is wondering why it actually should be in theaters. Maybe it'll be in digital and streaming sooner than later, or maybe on a YouTube. You can rent it as well. Hopefully, once that happens, more people will be able to watch it, right, Eric?
And again, Greg is a beautiful man to look at, as is Bruce and myself. And but we all have sultry golden throats through years of practice and working those out. You don't need to see us in a theater.
I have to disagree. I think I think that we should be seen in theater before The Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I disagree with that hard.
Beep. Okay, now speaking of beeps, before we get to Bruce's recommendations, Eric, you have just a recommendation this week that you're pulling out of the hat? A little you throwing an audible out here?
Yeah, I'm going off the rails a little bit, or outside the lines. We always go off the rails, but I'm definitely going outside the lines. I listened to the audiobook of Andy Weir's. I'm not going to say Project Greenlight, Project Hail Mary. It's a new book by him. I think it came out a couple months ago, and I'll give you the setup, like the stuff that happens like within the first chapter, because the great thing about this story is how things unfold. Basically, a guy wakes up and he's, kind of getting aware of his surroundings and trying to figure out where he's at. He sees 2 dead bodies, and they're not like fresh dead bodies. They're like mummified dead bodies. They don't stink. They've been there a while. He can't quite talk. There's a computer voice, asking him questions. What's your name? He doesn't know his name. What's 2 + 2? He can't figure that out. And he's basically slowly trying to figure out what happened to him. And then he slowly is kind of, his memory's not really coming back, but like little bits of it is. And he finds out that he's in a completely different solar system. He's on a spaceship in a completely different solar system all by himself. And he's got to figure out why. And he's got to figure out what his mission is. And this is very, like, if you like The Martian, this is very similar to that, in that it's got, someone just kind of working out problems and trying to figure things out. There's a butt ton of science in this, which I always appreciate. That might turn some people off. I don't know. But then I found out that they're making a movie about this. Andy Weir's producing the movie. It's being written by Drew Goddard, starring Ryan Gosling, and directed by Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs guys. And
Lord and Miller.
Being directed by Lord and Miller, which is totally going to work. And there's a lot of stuff in this book that I'm not sure is going to translate well to the movie, but there's some stuff in the movie or in the book that I'm like, I cannot wait to see this movie, to see how they do that, because it's going to be fantastic to watch that. When this movie is going to come out, this is going to be like on my most anticipated, because I've already listened to the audiobook twice. I'm probably going to listen to it a third time, and I can do that like on my way to work and stuff. So it's easier to do that than it is to watch movies, but this thing is fantastic. And there's so much more I want to talk about this book, but I can't, because I think a lot of the fun of this book is kind of going on the journey with the main character and learning stuff as the main character learns it. Not that there's any big twists or anything, but like when you find certain things out, you go on the journey of discovery with them. And that's half the fun of reading it the first time. And then reading it through the second time, when you know what's going on, you get, at least for me, I just get deeper into the science of it. And this is good stuff. I would say this is better than The Martian. So if you like The Martian, you're going to fucking love this thing.
All right. So that is Project Hail Mary, written by Andy Weir, Weir. I'm checking on Amazon.com right now. Why do I even say .com? But I'm checking on Amazon. 33,569 reviews. Overall rating is 4.5 stars. That is really high marks for Project Hail Mary. That is a recommendation.
Needs to be 6.9 stars.
Needs to be 6.9 stars. Actually, it wasn't too much of an audible, Eric, because it's within our purview. It's got to turn into a movie, and it's from the guy who did The Martian. So it sounds good. Project Hail Mary. I have not read a book, to be honest, in years. I need to read. When's the last time you read a book, Bruce?
Oh man, it's been
a while for me.
I think I read Gone Girl when it came out, so that would have been
7 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
7-8 years ago. Yeah, we're illiterate, unlike Eric. Eric actually does read books. He was.
I listen to audiobooks. It's a lot easier. I read books that usually if I'm like reading, it's usually screenplays like that I find online. But if it's a novel, I'll usually listen to the audiobook. And I don't got the guy's name, but the guy doing the reading the audiobook, dude, he's fantastic. I don't know who that guy is, but like the way he does the audiobook and does all the voice and everything, like his cadence and the way he just kind of exudes, just the character. Like, okay, this is a movie podcast. You want to talk about acting? The guy reading the audiobook, that is fine acting on his part throughout the whole audiobook.
So credit to that actor who's doing the audiobook for Project Hail Mary. Now, we're going to switch from audiobooks to something that is specifically Malignant Bruce Berkey, I've been reading all these reviews on Malignant saying how crazy this movie is. Yeah, your thoughts on the movie? Is it a huge recommend for you? And is it something that me and Eric will really fall for?
I would say this is absolutely similar to Prisoners of the Ghostland in that it is arguably a huge mess. But if it connects to your tone, you might really like it. So you guys might both really hate it. So for me, it's the exact reverse, where I can't defend it any more than Prisoners of the Ghostland as far as its quote quality. But I've had a million times more fun with it. First of all, we talked about going to movies, or Eric did actually. This was one where I went to the movie and I was the only person in the theater for the first 20 minutes. And then I want to ask you guys. So one person walked into the movie after that.
Nope. Lock the doors. You don't get in. Lock the doors. I'm sorry. Come to the next one. Sorry. Go on. Go.
So if you walked into a movie theater and there was one person in the movie theater, do you sit in the same row?
No.
This person did.
Well, there's two things wrong with that. One, you got to assign seating, but you're already late. You're already 20 minutes late. So you take the first seat that you see. That's the rule. Like if you're walking in during the trailers, fine. Take your seat. If the movie itself is playing, just grab the first seat. If someone else comes in later and it's like, that's my seat, too bad. Fine. Just take the first seat. Don't talk to anyone. Just take the first seat you find, sit down, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it was weird. That was a weird thing. So anyway, I'll give you the basic bare bones of this. And everyone can pretty much see this if they have HBO Max. I don't. So I went to the theater to see it, mostly because Andrew Martin had said, see it. I said, okay, it's got to have something going for it. I'm going to go check this out. Directed by James Wan. I'm not a huge James Wan guy. I think all of his stuff is okay. It's good enough, but it's not really my style. This movie, the basic idea of this movie, it starts out a woman, well, there's like a little pre-story before the credits. I won't tell you about that. But then after that, main woman comes home. She's pregnant, abusive husband. He's knocking her around. Very quickly, he gets killed by some strange dark figure, entity, demon. We're not sure what it is. And after he's killed, she is haunted by visions of this thing. And so it goes. Sounds pretty run of the mill. It sounds like regular old James Wan stuff. The thing you can't quite describe to people until they've seen this is, and I think I'd mentioned it to Greg, this is like a Marvel level movie being directed by a Marvel level director, but written by Tommy Wiseau. It's that level of nonsensicalness of it.
Sold.
This movie is so strange. And everybody who's watched it, I mean, some people say it's totally campy on purpose. I don't believe it. Some people say it's just totally terrible and not campy at all. Well, I don't believe that either. The last third of this movie is intentionally over the top to a degree that's insane. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that's in here, the terrible writing, the terrible acting, the horrible plot points, the almost soap opera style things that happen in this movie, a percentage of it is unintentional. And I was thinking about it, like, how do I know this? I don't really know how to describe it. It came to me, this is almost like, do you guys remember Chris Gaines?
Yes.
His okayest hit.
Yeah. Chris Gaines was the alternative alter ego of Garth Brooks.
No, he wasn't. Yeah. He was his own guy. Chris Gaines is a completely different person.
So my concept is that Garth Brooks, he knows how to make country, whether it's your thing or not. He knows how to make country. When you put him in a different thing, he tries his best, and it kind of seems sort of like it, but it's awkward and strange and doesn't quite work because it's not his thing. And that's sort of what I feel like here. This is like James Wan trying to do Sam Raimi, kind of, but he doesn't quite know how to do it. And it makes it very awkward and very unusual. This movie, especially if you have HBO Max, check it out. Keep in mind, you might be groaning and kind of like, oh my God, this is so dumb through the first 35, 40 minutes. But when it hits its final third, you're going to be like, what the fuck is going on in this movie? Because it just goes, talk about going off the rails. This goes all the way off the rails and just keeps going for a while. It's pretty interesting.
Well, pretty interesting, meaning that you just fell in love with the movie, right?
Right now, it's on my top 25 of the year.
Okay, top 25.
This is I have to have a couple of these each year. Okay. Shadow in the Clouds and this one right now.
I'm having a feeling.
This sounds like a movie that was so bad that it went all the way or back around and became brilliant.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling Bruce is saying top 25 when he actually means top 10. I don't know.
No,
So wait,
there's a lot of
you're
good, actually good movies this year. So
Like The Killing of
You're
Two
saying-
Lovers. Is it better than Killing? Right, that's a good
no,
one.
you can't even compare it. That's like comparing Cheese Whiz to like a fine steak or something.
Fondue, right? Good
Yes.
fondue.
So just so I'm clear, you're saying that if Prisoners of Ghostland was just a little bit worse, it would have came all the way back around and became as brilliant as Greg and I think it is.
Oh,
Maybe the problem for me, and we're not going to rehash it again, but it wasn't fun. This is fun to me. That just could say something about me. Maybe I'm just a weirdo and you guys are right on track. So I don't know.
That goes without saying. But, I heard that Malignant was kind of like a giallo. Someone said that. Is that at all a thing, or?
It's a little bit of everything. I think I originally described it as hot garbage. I also described it as, I think it owes a lot to De Palma. I think this is more like De Palma's version of giallo than actual giallo.
All right.
Oh, you're making it sound like I'm gonna completely love this movie. It just sounds like a movie that might be in my top 10 this year.
It's not as smart as De Palma. Because De
But
Palma
you know
knows
what?
what he's doing.
I
It
don't-
doesn't feel like it quite knows what it's doing.
You might have some pushback on that. Maybe James Wan is actually consciously going weird on this movie.
I've heard
Maybe?
that. I feel like this is one of those things where the person bombs and they say like, oh, I meant to do that. I feel like this is one of those movies where he's going to say, oh no, I meant it to be like that all the way through. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I think you meant the ending to be crazy. And I think you just kind of failed on the rest of it.
That's very interesting. I heard this. I never attended the press junket, but the press junket for Raising Cain, when the previous night before, okay, people were just, were laughing at the movie. A lot of the critics who were not De Palma fans were just really laughing at how ridiculous it was, that they thought it was. So then what happened? Supposedly, I'm getting this from the journalist. Supposedly what happened is the marketing team for Raising Cain, the next day, they had the talent basically talk about how much of a comedy it was. So they
watch the follow through on this and see what happens. I bet.
Okay. So you're thinking, oh, very interesting, Bruce. So actually who actually attended one of that Raising Cain press junket, who was one of the former journalists, not me. I didn't attend it, but this young whippersnapper who would ultimately become a TV producer and director when he was formerly a junketeer and he attended the Raising Cain junket. His name is Ryan Murphy. So he was one of the main voices behind. I need to get that. You know what? I need to find that Raising Cain press junket if they ever have it and see if his voice is on tape. That would be very interesting to hear. But okay, so Eric, are you excited about that movie? Are you excited about Malignant right now?
I'm excited and kind of scared at the same time. So it's like I'm intrigued. I'm extremely intrigued.
Also be a really fun one to have seen in a full theater. This would be a really fun one to hang out with friends and be drinking and eating pizza and doing the whole thing. This would be really fun that way. And once you've seen it, go watch Red Letter Media's version of it after you've listened to our podcast, because
really cool.
They hit it about the same way that I hit it. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Eric, wouldn't it be creepy and scary if Bruce is telling us this entire tale? We could actually put this as a extended version of a thriller episode from that Boris Karloff 1960 to 62 anthology series. Bruce is talking about that weird person who actually sat on the same row. What if we actually got through the security tape and realized it was just Bruce sitting there all by himself?
It was me sitting next to myself. So, you might be getting into a little bit of Malignant. I don't know.
Actually, you know what? It may have been Anderson, because I think I've seen his review of Malignant where he showed audio clips of some asshole sitting right next to him making weird noises. Was that you, Bruce? Was that you making those noises?
Wow.
No, that would be it. That would be very, very interesting. Now, before we get to your what's in the box, Bruce, you have one more quick recommendation, and you're just absolutely out of the blue. Again, like Eric was saying, folks, join our Cinematics Facebook group. Oh my gosh. And Bruce Perky actually purchased, this is the 4K Ultra HD version of Love and Monsters. Bruce, why? That's some good hard-earned money that you actually plunked down for this physical media.
This one came out of nowhere. I don't know how I missed it last year. I kept seeing the poster for it. I thought, oh, this looks just cheesy. The name is not good. Love and Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Michael Matthews, by the way. And it came up on Hulu recently. I thought, okay, I keep seeing this thing. Maybe it's okay. And a bunch of the members of Cinematics had said it was good. And it just kind of flew by the radar. You know how it is. We hear so many movies and sometimes just one doesn't catch in your brain. So I finally went around and watched this one, and I loved it. This is right up my alley. This is so much fun. This should be what all the big budget movies are getting made instead of superhero movies. An original property that's as fun as any of those big blockbusters are supposed to be. Basic concept. It just starts out, and Joel, played by Dylan O'Brien from Maze Runner, I think. Dylan O'Brien.
Yes, Maze Runner, and he was also in American Assassin. He's also in that as well.
Yeah. And he's kind of he starts it out. It's one of those movies that starts out and kind of gives you the how did we get to the post-apocalypse, right? And it tells you a quick little story. There was a meteor coming towards the Earth. We shot up missiles to blow it up. We successfully blew it up, but the fallout from the missiles we shot basically caused all of the cold-blooded animals, insects, frogs, whatever, to mutate into monsters, killing just about everybody on Earth except for the few survivors. And of course, Joel is one of the survivors. He lives in a bunker. He is the coward of the bunker. They're all really good friends, but he basically doesn't ever go out in the hunting parties. He just sits there and he cooks. He's good at cooking, and he's trying to get the radio working, and that's about all he does. He gets the radio working. He connects with the woman he was separated from 7 years ago, whenever it originally happened. He finds out she's also alive at another outpost about 85 miles away. And he decides, this is it. I'm going to leave the bunker. I'm going to travel across this dangerous landscape for 85 miles on foot and make it to her, the love of my life. That's the story. He's going to make this trip. On the trip, he might meet up with Michael Rooker. Can't go wrong there. He might meet up with a really awesome dog. Hey, throw a dog into a post-apocalyptic world, sure. And he might meet up with a lot of monsters. This movie is just fun adventure throughout. It's smart. It's better than it has to be. The monsters are used correctly. It's not a big, loud, noisy, Transformers style of movie. You get to see the monsters. They're unique. They're not overdone. They are used properly. This is just a fun adventure. It's really good.
How's the Blu-ray you got, or the 4K? Does it have some good special features?
Yeah, it's got a couple missing scenes, some behind the scenes stuff. I just wanted it because it's like, this is a movie I really like. I'm going to have it in my collection, like we tend to do. If I like it, I'm going to own it. And I wanted my kid watched it right after I did, because I said, you need to watch this movie. And he really liked it too. It's just great.
Sounds like a gem. Sounds like one of those things that's very underrated and overlooked. Not overlooked by certain people though. Critics, check this out. 94%. Audience score, 89%. So high marks for Love and Monsters. It's a movie that I missed. It's a movie that Eric Holmes has missed, and I'm sure it's a movie that a lot of people have missed. So Love and Monsters, headlined by Dylan O'Brien, high recommendation for Bruce Perky. And as usual, we are ending this show with Bruce Perky's What's in the Box. But before we do that, this is our musical interlude, and we have our show-stopping intro from Eric Holmes.
Yo, Pete. Sorry.
Oh boy.
Yo, Pete, drop that beat.
Who's in the box? Oh, what's in the box? You lie! No! What's in the fucking box?
All right, Bruce, what's our final movie for What's in the Box?
One False Move, which we mentioned earlier, and you have seen it, so we can kind of mention it, or we can talk about it together a little bit. From 1992, directed by Carl Franklin. I rented it. I believe it's on, you could look it up. It's on one of the streaming channels, Stars or one of those. But you can rent it for a couple bucks, or you could get a DVD of it too. I think you mentioned just about everybody who's in it. I don't know if you mentioned that the main star in this is Bill Paxton. I don't know if you mentioned that.
I did not. No.
So, and then Billy Bob Thornton, of course, in a very early role with his balding head and a ponytail, because he's an asshole robber, killer, drug dealer type. So the basic concept of this movie is it's kind of interesting. It's a little dated. I would say it's mostly good, with a little bit of stuff doesn't quite age as well. Overall, I still say it's pretty interesting and a little unique for kind of a crime movie of that era. The basic concept starts out with Billy Bob Thornton's character and two other people basically kind of like home invading a drug house. And essentially, they just rob these people who have a bunch of drugs and money. They kill them all, and they hit the road. And basically, this is a really small town in Arkansas with the sheriff played by Bill Paxton. And they know that Billy Bob Thornton's character has relations in that town. So they have a feeling that they might be heading that direction. So you kind of have these two things converging. You have the big city cops going to the small town with Bill Paxton, kind of waiting to see if they can catch the killers. And then you have this parallel story of the cross-country trip of these three killers with a really interesting dynamic where you got Billy Bob and Cinda Williams as a couple, and then one other guy who's kind of like the organized, level-headed dude, kind of as the third wheel in this trio of criminals, and they're heading across going there. For me, the most interesting dynamic in this movie is when it starts out, you get Bill Paxton's character as kind of this country bumpkin, real, gung-ho. I'm gonna, show the big city cops how awesome it is in this small town, and how life is in the out of the big city, and how it plays on that whole like, aw shucks, but yet I'm a really good cop underneath it, almost a little like Fargo sort of. But as it progresses, you get to see more and more of his character, and it becomes more complex, and it becomes really interesting, and it has a pretty interesting finale as well.
You said it's dated. In what aspects is it dated just a little bit?
Some of the crime stuff is very, you've seen it a lot now, the cops pulling over the criminals on the side of the road, and that kind of tense scene you're going to have between them. Some of the interactions between the drug dealers and the bad guys you've seen a million versions of that a million times. So some of that plays as a little bit like, not too interesting anymore, and maybe not as much as it was then, but all of the character stuff as they get closer to the small town is still interesting and deeper than you expect it to be when it starts to actually unfold in the final act.
Okay, so that is One False Move. I should have actually looked it up. I was just reading all these reviews. I'm going to look it up on Just Watch. By the way, folks, if you want to see where your movies are streaming, just go to justwatch.com. That's where you're going to actually find if it's streaming in any place. Go to justwatch.com. Eric Holmes, do you have any thoughts on One False Move? Billy Bob Thornton, Bill Paxton, Carl Franklin, any random? No,
I haven't seen it.
This seems like a movie I would almost guarantee that Eric would really like this movie. I have a feeling he'd really like this.
What's someone that's kind of
This movie is currently streaming on Stars, or you can rent or buy it. Okay, when Bruce rented it.
What's the movie where they're it works kind of like a prequel to Fargo, where the
works as a prequel to Fargo? I'm trying to think.
I think it's a Sam Raimi movie, maybe.
Oh, I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of, oh yeah. Oh, it's in the snow and everything. Yeah. I can't remember what it's called now either. Yeah, it has a similar kind of a generic title.
Simple Plan.
Yes.
Yeah, Simple Plan. As you were describing the movie, I'm like, fuck, maybe I did watch this.
No, you saw.
Yeah, that's Simple Plan.
This is much more of a road movie, and also a road movie mixed with kind of this down home country, and it really plays with the idea of Southern down home America, and it starts out with like the most kind of obvious version of that, and it just peels away the reality from underneath. So yeah.
I'm in. I'm gonna check this one out.
Okay, and that is it.
After Malignant.
After Malignant. Okay, so that is it. That is this week's episode of Find Your Film. Eric, final thoughts? Anything?
Look, I know.
Oh, sorry, Bruce is. Before you have the thoughts, Bruce. Sorry about the pick. Oh,
I know this is a great podcast.
I know
that you love
Bruce
watching us and listening to us. I know you want to know what's in the box.
What's in the bleeping box?
This podcast does not need to be
in the
theaters.
Yes, sir.
But this next movie that Bruce is about to read off may need to be seen in theaters.
Very good.
If it's playing anywhere, you never know.
What's in the bleeping box, Bruce?
I don't know. I'm pulling it out right now. Hang on. Let me pull something out of the box here.
There you
go. In the box?
You have to unpeel it. It's something from 1985. I know that much. It's suggested by Brian O'Connell.
Hey, Brian O'Connell.
This is going to be a good one. I have not seen this, but I've heard of it. Tough Turf.
Oh, Tough Turf.
From 1985, directed by Fritz Kirsch, suggested by Brian O'Connell.
Thank you yet again, Brian O'Connell, one of our original Cinematics Facebook group members. Folks, if you want to be part of our whole community, join our Cinematics Facebook group. Every single week, I give away 2 discs for people who are members of our Facebook group. We're about 500 strong, and nice small group. And we have a lot of people like Matt Stillman, Ken Cunningham, all these different people, Joseph Bridges. They just come up with some really good daily movie recommendations that is worth pretty much the price of admission, and that admission is free, folks. So I'll have a link where you guys can actually join our Cinematics Facebook group. And final thoughts, yet again. Bruce, thanks for actually anchoring the final half of our podcast episode.
Sorry, guys.
No. Final thoughts from Bruce Berkey.
Well, I have some audio help from this one, so we'll see if it works. My final thought has to do with every week we make this sprawling podcast and we ask Greg, our fearless leader, to cut it up and to fix it and make it beautiful. So I'm going to give him some audio encouragement from Malignant, and hopefully I can make it come out and so you can hear it. You'll have to cut this so you can get it.
I'm the Malignant.
What did she say?
Try it one more time here.
Cut out the cancer.
Sounds like Don.
We cut out the cancer.
We cut out the cancer. We cut out the cancer. We cut out the cancer. Is that a very important part in Malignant, Bruce?
Maybe.
Maybe not. Oh, by the way, let's go on the 5-star system. Out of 5 stars, what do you give it?
This
Malignant?
podcast, 5.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is a
Yes.
great podcast.
Yes,
you listen
folks.
to it every week. The best one you hear all week.
Please
and
leave
it's going to be even better the following week. But you do not need to see it in a
In
theater.
the theaters.
That's the most important part.
Rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Please give us 5 stars, folks. And speaking most importantly, Bruce, final thoughts on Malignant. 5-star movie, 4-star movie, 4.5 stars. What do you think?
Well, it's like I rate these all the time. As actual movie for quality, it's about a 2-star movie, but as fun factor, it's about a 5-star movie. So I'd say 3.5 to 4 stars.
Oh, very cool. And with that, we will see you next week on Find Your Film. Thank you guys for listening and have a good week watching movies.